Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Ontario Brain Institute's Movement for Brain Health public talk. My name is Wency Leung, and I'm a health reporter with the Globe and Mail. I'm very pleased to be here today with you all. Today's talk is a hybrid event with in-person and online audiences. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that many of us are here gathered today on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who remain caregivers of the land, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and to work here. The Ontario Brain Institute, or OBI, is a provincially funded, not-for-profit organization that accelerates discovery and innovation with the aim of benefiting both patients and the economy. Founded in 2010, OBI's vision is to position Ontario as a world leader in brain research, commercialization, and care, and its mission is to improve the lives of the 1 in 3 Canadians impacted by a brain disorder. Over the past 8 years, OBI has hosted more than 30 public talks featuring experts in neuroscience and brain health. These conversations are meant to educate, inform, and empower you and share knowledge about brain health, drawing from the latest advances in research and care. The goal of this 2023 and 24 series, Brain Health Basics, is to offer simple, insightful, and science-supported ways to support brain function in everyday life. At today's Movement for Brain Health, we hope to share knowledge about the way in which daily movement can support brain health, as well as the benefit that it has on overall well-being. It's fitting that we are here today at the Daniel Spectrum, which is a community hub, a community cultural hub, because as you'll hear from tonight's speakers, it's not just about movement it's not just about the movement that you're doing, but with the people that you do it with and the connections that you make. Now, without further ado, let's get things started as we just have over an hour together this evening. As moderator, I'll facilitate a 45 to 50-minute chat with our panelists, after which we'll take audience questions. For those of you who are watching us via live stream, you can send us your questions by using the chat function, and that's on the right side of your screen, or you can email us at communications@braininstitute.ca. For those of you in person, when you have a question, please raise your hand, and Kayla, who is over here, Kayla will pass you a pen and paper, and please hand it back after you've noted your question. And you can also, if you're here, email us at communications@braininstitute.ca. So, excuse me. Let me now introduce our panelists. Sarah Lambert is CEO and co-founder of Aura Medical. And Sarah is dedicated to revolutionizing physical rehabilitation for brain injury patients. With a background in physical therapy and mechanical engineering, Sarah leads a talented team to develop innovative solutions that address accessibility challenges in healthcare. Angela Roberts. Angela holds a joint appointment in the School of Communication Sciences and Disorders and the Department of Computer Science, at Western University. And she's also a research associate with the Canadian Centre for Activity and Aging. With a background in clinical rehabilitation, Angela leads a group of investigators exploring the continuum of cognitive aging from dementia to exceptional cognitive aging. And we have Sarah Robichaud. Sarah is the founder and executive director of Dancing with Parkinson's. She's a classically trained dancer and choreographer who graduated from the Bolshoi Ballet in Moscow. Sarah is now the only certified Canadian in the Dance for Parkinson's Disease, or PD, method, and she's the founding member of the Dance for PD Network Canada. So, Thank you. Thanks for being here with me.
Happy to be here.
Let's start with Angela. Angela, you're interested in superagers and the continuum of cognitive care. Can you tell us a bit about what that actually means?
Sure, happy to. Our research really looks at, as you said, this kind of continuum from dementia to exceptional cognitive aging. And so what that means is, because we're interested in understanding some of the things that go wrong in conditions like dementia and Parkinson's disease, we felt like we need to understand a group of people for whom things were going exceptionally well. So our superagers are people 80 and older who have memory abilities as good as or better than people in their 50s and 60s. They're a phenomenal group of people. We have 100-year-olds who are camping on their own. We have 95-year-olds who are out riding 20 miles a day on their bikes. But they're an amazing group of people who are teaching us a lot about living and longevity, but doing so well, but also helping us understand the biology of aging so that we can help people with conditions like Parkinson's and dementia.
That's so fascinating.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear more about it as we go on tonight. Sarah Lambert, you came to the brain health realm with experience in physical therapy. Can you tell us about your current focus?
Yeah, so my focus was to make my physical rehabilitation more accessible. So I was working with children mostly with cerebral palsy, and I saw that physical therapy was not accessible for all of my patients. So this is why I switched to mechanical engineering to try to build some of my device. So I was trying to replicate my manual therapy. So when I was helping kids getting back to walking, I was taking them by the hips and I was supporting their weight. So this is exactly what we're trying to do with the device that is actually connected with their clinicians.
Okay, and we can see a demonstration of that device later, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. And so Robichaud, your road to brain health has also been unique. I wondered if you might be able to tell us more about your organization.
Sure. So my organization is called Dancing with Parkinson's. I founded it about 15 years ago. After a career as a professional dancer, I wanted to bring people living with Parkinson's disease, which is a neurodegenerative disorder, and it affects the part of the brain that initiates movement, helps to initiate movement. So often people with PD feel very restricted, very rigid, and many have said they feel like prisoners in their own bodies. So I wanted to help and bring people with Parkinson's disease into an artistic environment, not a clinical environment, where they could move to music, be with other people who understood what they were going through, and honestly explore the potential of their own movement with music, with being part of a very inclusive, welcoming community.
Do you want to give us a taste? I'm very interested in
Sure.
what Dancing with Parkinson's class is like.
Oh,
Yeah, could you give
absolutely.
us a demo?
So we offer in-person classes and also online classes every single day of the year for free to people living with Parkinson's disease and seniors, the aging community, because exercise in this form is good for absolutely everyone, no matter what your limitations are. So I'm going to invite all of you to move with me. You can do this right in your chair, and you do as much or as little as you like. And I want you to give yourself the permission to be free, to express yourself through your body, to let the music come into your body, and don't think too hard about it. And we do this through storytelling and visualization and imagery. So if you could play the music, please, that would be wonderful. So we're going to imagine ourselves on a huge ship in the East Coast, and we're coming back to shore after leaving our loved ones behind for many, many months. Let's ride the waves. Your waves can be big or small, fast or slow. This is up to you. Just really feel those waves. Let that music inform the waves. This is your chance to move however your body wants to move. And then we're going to see the lighthouse shine. Be careful you don't hit the person next to you. Shine. And shining lighthouse. That's it. And then we have the strong sailor. and we cast our rope. And then we're going to pull the rope in and in and in. And let's see that strong sailor, strong, strong. And cast that rope. Beautiful. Now pull. I want you to pull someone into you. And we're going to ask each other to dance. We say, will you dance with me here? Say it. Will you dance with me here? Find someone new. Will you dance with me here? Someone else. Will you dance with me here? We say it's a beautiful night for dancing under the shooting stars. Again, a beautiful night for dancing under the shooting stars. Let's do that again. For dancing. Is anybody getting sweaty? This is exercise, I know. Let's dance together in a big, beautiful ballroom, and we sweep, sweep. Imagine you're dancing with your lover you haven't seen for months, sweeping through the ballroom. And let's sweep toward each other. Sweep and away, toward and toward. Beautiful. We're going to go up and down the waves now. They're bigger waves. They're very passionate waves. Flick. Ride those waves. And big flick. We say, will you dance with me? Say it with me. Here. Will you dance with me? Here. And let's say, I'd love to dance with you and you and you and you and you and you here. Thank you. So, how do you feel? Like, honestly, I saw a lot of smiles in the room. I saw the bodies lift to here. I saw a lot of extension, a lot of coordination, a lot of rhythm. That's how our dancers feel every day in class. So just for this moment, take a little a look inside. And do my spirits feel lifted? Do I feel clearer? Do I feel more ready to focus? Whatever it is for you. But that's just an example of using visualization and imagery and storytelling to dance and exercise.
That is so fun, Sarah. And I mean, I can imagine, how do you kind of encourage people who think, I can't dance, to participate in this?
Yeah, the word dance can be really scary. People say, I have 2 left feet, or I'm in a wheelchair, or I'm in a hospital bed. Every single person can dance. Dance is moving to music. So whether it's up here, or it's literally behind your eyelids, any movement, we all can dance. We all have a heartbeat. We have that innate beat already in our body. And so dance is really just responding to that beat. Dance is really just expressing yourself in a nonverbal way. So anything goes. There's absolutely no wrong way to do it.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Angela, I wanted to turn this question over to you.
That.
Yeah. In your work, you said that you've noticed that people do well when they can track their own progress. Can you tell us about what you've observed in research and what people can do in their own lives?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So the research that we've done that's looked at how people move and people's ability to monitor their movements comes out of work actually funded by the Ontario Brain Institute. So this was a study called the Hands Ontario study that was part of the Ontario Neurodegenerative Disease Research Initiative. And what we did was put wearable sensors on people that they wore at home through all their regular activities, both people aging typically, as well as people with brain diseases such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease. And what we did was put that data into a data pipeline that basically at the end spit out a report. Now, that report told people how they were doing in their sleep, their movement, their activity, and benchmarked them against the Canadian standards for that. What we saw was very quickly, it took very little time, really about 2.5, 3 weeks, for people to start making behavior changes. They recruited their family members to help them exercise. They started a new exercise class. They contacted their doctor to find out why they weren't sleeping as well. So we think about these as being mechanisms of behavioral change. People respond really well when we give them information about how they're doing that they can use to understand where they're at compared to other people and where they should be. So this kind of construct in rehabilitation is called self-management, right? Giving people information to allow them to make decisions about their own health care, both clinical and social activity. And so now we use these same methods in other studies, but it's really about giving people data and information to control their own lives, their own behaviors.
So what would you recommend for people at home who are not part of your study? How do they apply this?
Well, I mean, I think there's lots of ways. So we use high-tech ways of tracking people, but there's lots of ways you can track your own behavior, keeping a log of what you're doing, tracking your sleep habits. People always think, I have to wear these fancy watches and fancy devices. For some people that works. One of the other things that we have found in our research, again, thanks to funding from the OBI, is that not all of those fancy devices actually work as well on older adults. In fact, we know that they tend to underestimate activity by about 30%. So you may be active, but that device is reading you as not active because the algorithm behind was built for an 18-year-old. Well, what activity means to an 80-year-old is not what it means to an 18-year-old. So you have to be careful with those devices, but still yet anything that you wear, track on paper that lets you kind of monitor what you're doing and follow yourself and gathering a community, what we think a community of practice, other people who are doing that with you, fantastic way to get motivated and stay active.
Cool, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sarah L., given your work in neurotech, you must see tremendous amounts of information that come your way through patients or client data. How do you see this as being used in real life and in sort of meaningful ways?
Yeah, definitely. Good question. So the goal is really to engage the patient in their therapy. So what we're doing now, we're putting the phone on the gait trainer. So it's an IMU sensor on the phone. And we collect a lot of specific data such as speed, distance, all the trunk imbalancement. So it helps a lot of parents who are like, oh, my child is not really progressing. But now if they see the data, they see that there is really small progression. So, but still, there is progression. So it's super engaging for parents and also for the kid. So for example, one of our clients, Colin, so at the beginning, he was doing 10 meters by his own. And now, just by looking at his data, he always wants to push his own limit a little bit more. So now he's walking more than 1 kilometer. Mm-hmm. So it's super engaging for them to see that he's actually progressing. So we're having the power now to change his prognostic just because he engaged himself and he's really much more motivated. So the goal is the patient can now base and set his own goal based on himself, so his own goal standard, and he feel less compared to the others.
Oh, that's amazing. And how about how does that help the therapists as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the goal was that our business model is we're selling to hospitals, so they can rent and loan the gait trainer to their patients. So now they can track how is the patient going remotely, and through our platform they can change the exercises to do with it, because now they have their hands free. So we are opening a new greater range of exercises.
Amazing. Oh, that's cool. So
Wency, I want to pick up on something Sarah said quickly, and I think Sarah will also agree, this kind of value and importance of setting goals. Because we kind of think about goals that I'm going to set a New Year's resolution, I may or may not achieve it. That's not the type of goals that I don't think any of the three of us are talking about. It's goals allow you to set an intention, and the technologies as well as some of the tracking devices we do allow you to monitor your intention. So there's kind of 3 stages to behavioral change: setting your intention, using data to kind of monitor where you're at, and taking action. And so I think what we're all kind of talking about here for movement is that real essentialness thinking about, taking a goal, marking your intention, tracking how you're doing, and then using that information to reward yourself for good changes.
No, that's a great point. Thank you so much. Yeah. Sarah Robichaud, what are the integrated benefits of dance versus sort of a more straightforward type of exercise, like using a treadmill or
Yeah, well, so dance is a multidisciplinary activity, right? So it does involve cognition. You're learning steps and choreography. You have to remember sequences. It obviously works on your physicality, right? So there's lengthening, there's strengthening, there's posture, all of those types of things. And then it really affects your emotions, right? It has the ability to really uplift your spirits, and it gives you that vehicle for expression, right? Expressing ourselves is sometimes hard. So dance, to be able to express yourself through your body is really a beautiful thing if we allow ourselves to do that. So dance is sort of this very holistic modality, but probably one of the biggest things that's different about dance is that sort of incorporation of the music and of storytelling and visualization and imagery. So if you go to an exercise class, you will hear music and you will do steps. But in dance, we're accessing the movements and the steps always through some kind of story. So even, when we teach young dancers how to dance, it's not just put your leg in front. It's reach your leg as far as you can to the end of the puddle and then dip your toe in the puddle. There is a story behind every single thing. And what we're finding in the Parkinson brain is that it's actually helping our dancers access movements that they can't normally do by saying, put your foot in front. So that is just absolutely mind-blowing. And then the other thing that's really different about, our dance program, I think that from, going to a worka class is this sense of community. People are coming to this community all on the hope that they might feel a little bit better after. Everybody is there for the same thing, to get exercise, to see people who are welcoming them, and to be honestly part of something beautiful. They feel like part of a family, and it's a really great sense of belonging.
That's amazing. I want to get back to that point in a minute. Yeah, like about the sense of community. But I wonder if Sarah Lambert, if you might be able to comment about the health effect, the benefits to brain health in being able to access movement. What do you see in the clients that you have who use the gait trainer? How does that affect their mood, their brain health outside of what they're actually training their brain to do?
So we're really improving their daily activity, and I think that's really the key. So yesterday I had a video from a mom showing me a video that with her child that is actually playing tennis. So now he's having it hands-free, and like the testimonials from the child is like, now I feel normal, and that's the best feeling that we can ever have. Like improving his quality of life. That's really the goal, and I think the gait trainer really helps that.
And sorry, this child had a condition that didn't allow him to.
Yeah, so with the typical walker on the market, you will see like a frame, and even the walker for elderlies, right? It's only a frame, and you put all the weight on the upper arm and no weight in the leg. So you will just carry a walker instead of living with it. So now with our partial weight support technology, by being supported by the waist, the trunk, now they have access to their hands, and we're really improving their daily activity.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Thanks.
So back on the subject of the social side of things, Angela, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're finding with the super agers and so their social activity.
Sure. I mean, they're teaching us a lot about the types of behaviors that they do that help them to age well. Of course, they're generally all active. They have great sleep patterns. In fact, I don't know whether recently you heard Jamie Lee Curtis say she goes to bed at 7:30 every night. Well, our super agers do the same thing. So good sleep and good physical activity. But the other piece that is so critical is that they have deep social networks. They talk about this. It's not even that they're all extroverts, but the social relationships that they have are deep and meaningful to them. Biology-wise, we actually think there might be an explanation for this. So there are neurons in the brain called von Economo neurons that we find kind of in a network in the brain that we think about as being a salience network. So it's a network in the brain that tells us what's important to us in life. Elephants have these neurons, the great apes have these neurons, whales have these neurons, and superagers have 4 times the number of von Economo neurons than what we see in typically aging adults. So we think there's this biology piece to this kind of meaningful resistance to social engagement. It's a super important thing for us to know because one of the risk factors for developing dementia is actually low social engagement. One of the things that we know that we can do to enhance slowing progression of dementia, quality of life in dementia, as well as other brain disorders, is this idea of community, social engagement, meaningful social interactions with others. I'm a speech-language pathologist by clinical training. I came to this because I was interested in those interactional pieces. And so now we're seeing this across the continuum of just the value and importance of meaningful community.
Sarah, I think you have an anecdote to share with us about what the community for your organization means to you.
Yeah, in rehearsal we were just sort of sharing anecdotes and saying like we're so lucky that we get to experience like real impact and real change on a daily basis. We get that feedback from our clients, dancers, patients. And the story that I was sharing was, so before and after each class, we chat, right? That's the social time where people connect, they share stories. And there's a gentleman named Gord who's been dancing with us for maybe about a year and a half now. He lives in a long-term care home and he has Parkinson's disease. And he said, I have some great news. I went to my neurologist and my neurologist said that I'm doing better than I have done in years. He said that I'm calmer, I seem happier, and I'm moving better. And I told him, it's because of dancing with Parkinson's. And then he started tearing up and he was like, you guys are my second family. He said, most days I don't want to get out of bed and it's really hard to get out of bed. But I know if I come here, my day is amazing after that. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of stuff we hear every single day. And it's this feeling of family, of belonging, but also checking in on each other. There's this camaraderie. Mm-hmm. And they ask about each other, have you seen Lois? They're there to support one another. And honestly, to tell the stories that maybe their family has heard 1,000 times. It's a new story for us and we love it, right? So people are being seen, they're being heard, they're being valued, and they get to experience maybe a little bit of who they once were, who they want to become. They can be anyone in our class. And so it's really sort of that feeling of, I belong here. I absolutely belong here, however I am, whoever I am in this moment.
That's amazing, that's great, yeah. Both of you've talked about the value of data and the value of self-tracking, but like personally for me, I know that you might get to a point where you're feeling good, you're getting out and doing daily activity, and then you think, hey, I'm good, I'm gonna take a break, and you kind of plateau, and then do you have any sort of advice or thoughts on how to kind of to get over the plateau or to sort of not shove aside your data thinking that, oh, you're good now? Like how do you move on from that?
I'll let you take that first, Sarah, if you want. I'm sure with the kids you work with, that happens too.
Yeah, so we put some features to engage the patient in the app. So like smile and rewards. But like that's just to engage a little bit more the patient. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a community around the fact that they are improving. So what we're trying to do at Aura is basically the new Strava for rehabilitation. So if someone is improving, then they can share on Facebook and share to their community that now they're improving. And it's really rewarding for them because like the example of Colin, who's now walking 1 kilometer, he wanted to tell the world. So now he can tell the world, and like still he can set a better goal after. So that's how we're trying to engage them, is like by building this type of community. Yeah.
See. Angela, you have any thoughts about that?
I completely agree, and I think Sarah talked about this in terms of the community with Dance with Parkinson's. At the end of the day, the best data we have is the data that we get from those around us, right? Whether they're giving us feedback that they're proud of us for exercising that day and moving that day, or they really appreciated us coming to a group. I think one of the things that we have to appreciate is that data comes in every human interaction that we have. It's not just the bits and numbers that you and I work with in apps and complex algorithms. And so community, when we think about those days that we're sluggish, and we're talking about here social engagement, and it's like, oh, what's that got to do with movement? Got everything to do with movement, right? Because it often is the motivation that gets us up and moving. And so whether it's a community exercise program that's accessible to people from different cultures, people of different body shapes, people of different ability levels, this is why our government and policyholders are investing so much in that space. We need to be doing more. I will say the overall activity grades for Canada in 2021 were abysmal. And even though we had just come through COVID, I mean, they give grades on different areas. We, as a country, are C's, D's, F's on a lot of these markers. And one of the solutions that's kind of put forward are these engaging communities of practice, engaging communities of people that are accessible, because that really is, again, this idea of community, again, driven through data, driven through apps, driven through devices, or just driven through collection of people that keep us moving and going.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, that brings us to another question about, like, how do you even start? Like, and how do you get somebody who goes from zero to let's go dance, let's participate?
So we have in-person classes all throughout the city and soon the province. But we also, so in this Zoom class that I'm talking about that we've been offering for free since March 2020, every single day, 365 days of the year, we have new people coming in every single day. And a lot of them have no idea what they're sort of walking into. A lot of people will turn their cameras off for a period of time and then, oh, hi, I'll introduce myself. I'm Ellen. I've been taking these classes. They're so great. So on our end, the way that we set ourselves up to have people stick around and feel welcome is that we let everybody know that even, if their camera isn't on, we feel them. We express the gratitude. Mm-hmm. Like, if they don't show up, I have no job. What am I gonna do, right? Like, the gratitude that they come with the courage, with the openness, with, they're sort of trusting us and our incredible DWP instructors with movement, which is probably a pretty vulnerable thing for a lot of the people who are dancing with us, be it due to a movement disorder or just aging issues, in the body. And here we are, we're like, dance with us. So we do it seated, it's a seated class, and we're constantly reminding people, please work at your own level. Like, all we want you to do, really, is take the music into your body. If you want to follow what I'm doing, amazing. If you want to do the essence of what I'm doing, amazing. If you want to do something completely different, even better, because that's probably the right thing for you today. But you showed up. Every single person who is here, even if we can't see you, you showed up. You did an incredible thing, and we really hope you come back tomorrow. Like, it's just that sort of, and then they come back, and we do a lot of sort of old favorite dances that, people, if they come, they'll be thrown in here and there, and so that they can sort of latch onto mastering something. So it's not always a challenge, right? So we work on new things, we work on old things, and at some point, everybody feels like they're at the same spot.
Amazing. Okay. And Sarah L. or Angela, do you have any comments on like how do you start? How do you even begin? Maybe Angela, you want to?
Sure. I will say I've had the chance to see some of your classes, and I do think they're phenomenal. So I will give you lots of credit for the fantastic work that you do. I think we all have trouble getting started at a new behavior, and I think from a rehabilitation science standpoint, that often is really hard. People come to us with injuries and changes in their body, whether that's an aging body, an aging mind, or an actual body that's been injured through a stroke or through another condition. And I think this idea of vulnerability is really important, and it's the offering of grace and acceptance at every level where people come to you. I think it's often how you just get started. It's grace to oneself when you're talking to yourself internally, but it's, again, we've said it a couple of times, and I don't think we're not repeating ourselves because we can't think of anything else to say. That idea of community and coming together is so critical. So when your inner voice, when you're having trouble listening to it, your community can give you courage and acceptance in those vulnerable spaces. And so even if your community is one person, I think it's finding that person, because it's that will be many of the keys of getting started in movement. We see that in clinical populations. We also see it in people without diseases.
Yeah. In our case, we're working with kids, so they are usually with their parents when they are in the device. So the parents encourage them, but we see the best results when it's not the parents who are actually engaging them in their therapy, when it's the child that is having fun doing, being in it. And so if he's having fun, I'm having fun at your therapy and dancing, so I would definitely go. So I think making it as a fun activity instead of a therapy, that's really a game changer.
Amazing, thank you.
Absolutely.
I think at this point we'll open it up to questions. For those who are logging in at home, and for those of you here as well, if you want to send questions, you can use the email communications@braininstitute.ca, and for everybody here, we can also raise your hand and you'll get a chance. Great. This first one is for Sarah R. The main issue with PD, Parkinson's disease, is with the initiation of movement and control of movement. So how does dance change the neural networking of these patients?
Right, so I can't tell you how it changes the neural networking, because that's way out of my wheelhouse. But what I can tell you, what we see and what our dancers experience is that sort of what I was talking about before, the way that we use music as a cue, so the beat of the music as a cue, and also the visualization in the imagery. So for example, if I were to say to someone with Parkinson's disease, lift your right hand, that may or may not happen easily, right? It might be like, I need to think, and it's not going. But if I said, I want you to catch a butterfly with your right hand, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So we put imagery to almost every single thing that we do. So if I want to get sort of that dexterity in the hands, I wouldn't say feel all your fingers. I'd be like, pick up the sand, let the sand run through your fingers, and then they can do it. We have dancers who come into a class in a wheelchair or a walker, and halfway through class, they're waltzing around the room without a device, right? It's the music, it's being transported to another place, and again, the storytelling. And the motivation, I think, too, to do that sort of expression. There's not, out of our thousands and thousands of dancers, there's maybe 5 who danced in their previous life. So we have thousands of people who have never really used dance as a way to express themselves. And I think, there's a lot to be said for that too.
Okay. This next question is for Sarah. Well, I think Sarah L., you can answer this one. How do your patients and clients find you, and how can people access your gait trainer?
Yeah, so we just got into market, so this is why, and thanks to OBI for this, so we got the NERV program last year. So we're pretty new, we just entered the market. We did our first delivery last April. We did a really small limited market release in Canada, but we're gonna get a new, we have a waiting list now for the next delivery that is gonna be by the end of October. You can definitely look at us on our website, so www.auramedical.ca. You can book a demo, so it's going to be with me probably, or with my co-founder, and we're going to make sure that the gait trainer would be good for your child, and we're making like a whole interview, and you have the opportunity to test it at some location. So yeah, we're trying to make it really accessible for our patients.
Okay, great, thank you. This is for Angela. How has your background in speech pathology informed your research? You said that it helps you understand the effects of communication participation and not just the communication itself.
I think I can explain that. Yeah. So thanks, Wency. For me, I think, so I am a clinical speech-language pathologist by background and training, so it does seem a little weird that I ended up in this kind of biology space. When I left my clinical practice to go back to be an SLP, I did so because I was working with people who had Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's dementia, and the way we were seeing them were through these kind of separated lenses: movement, difficulty with memory, speech issues, and it kept bothering me that we were failing to see this whole person, this whole entity. Communication, by definition, is the primary mechanism that we use to create and maintain social relationships in our lives. In fact, while I talk to my cat on a pretty regular basis, and my dog occasionally responds to both of us, at the end of the day, communication is an inherently human activity. And so part of how I landed where I was actually saying, okay, our understanding of disease has a problem because we're not looking at the whole person. Our understanding of aging and the stigma that comes with that, because we just dismiss people once they get to a certain age, was not okay with me. So I think what my rehabilitation training brought to the puzzle here, that you know, having a straight biology background or a straight technology and engineering background, although I think you're amazing in 1,000 ways. But bringing all those things together allowed me to kind of put a different lens on this in terms of thinking about people as whole entities that live, breathe, move in their community and in their world around them. So same problems, different approach, completely informed by what I know about human and human interaction.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. This is for Sarah Robichaud. Can you please describe how routine is a key factor for your dancer's success?
Oh, absolutely. The dancer, since we moved to online, people are now coming, well, probably 4 or 5 times a week, some 6 and 7. And we were always trying to measure in our in-person classes, what is the dose? What is the dose needed to have those lasting effects? Do I have to do class 2 times a week, 3 times a week? And just because of sort of geography and capacity, we weren't ever able to sort of test out what 4 times a week looks like. And now with the online class, we see that 3, 4 times a week, the people who are doing that feel like this is now just their routine. It is this sort of, they're talking about this relentless routine that nothing happens between 11 and 11:45 but dance. Don't call me, don't make a date, I'm not doing laundry. Like, they are committed because we have people who literally, you know, prior to the pandemic weren't walking, and now they're skiing and they're hiking. And like, these are the kinds of stories, and I really truly believe it's because it's that consistency. It's that 30 minutes, you know, 4 to 5 to 6 times a week where you are moving your body, where you are stretching, where you are strengthening, where your spirits are lifted, where your brain is getting sharper. You know, all of these things are, and you're part of this community.
Setting an intention.
Right, exactly. And so I think that this routine part is really the people who are really engaging in it as a routine. And I would say most people they are experiencing major impacts, positive impacts in their lives.
Sarah, you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, that's why I switched to mechanical engineering. I was like, one session per week is not enough. My patients would have need daily therapy to see real progression, and that's why with our device now they are able to do it at home. So this is exactly like consistency is
Yeah.
the key.
Yeah.
Angela, do you have anything to add to that too? No?
Experts here.
Okay. Sounds good.
With a PhD.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. Let's see, I think you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, this one. This is Sarah Lambert. What kind of brain injury do the children that you work with have?
So we're working with different disability.
Okay.
So like it works for children, mostly for children with cerebral palsy. It works for spinal cord injury, transverse myelitis. We're also working with the Transverse Myelitis Association, Canadian Association. So she really helps patients to get the levity. So I think she run like that's out of topic, but she run like half a marathon to purchase like a gait trainer with pushing the child.
Wow.
So it was amazing.
Oh, wow.
So transverse myelitis works a lot. Yeah, so far we've seen really good progress, but really depending like autism, as long as the child has a bit of walking disability, it's potentially a good fit.
And have you? Is this gait trainer like something that could be applied for adults?
Yeah, so we've tried to, we wanted at first to build a device for adults, and I went to nursing homes with my device, and I was like, what do you think about this device? And a lot of them were not ready mentally to use a walking aid. Like they don't really accept that they are deconditioning, and like that's the market, that's the reality, right? So what we've done, we're just scaling the sensor. So with the kid, we're putting the iPhone on the gait trainer to take all this measurement. And with the adults, now we're scaling just an IMU sensor. So we're taking the same data, such as the speed, distance, the tilt for imbalancement. We collect the data, and now they can do the same thing that what they're doing with children, is like sharing to their kids and like sharing to their community. So they can do the exact same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So from what I'm getting from you all, actually sharing your progress is a huge part of making progress. Thank you.
Yeah, because people are proud, and that's make them like want to do it more.
Yeah.
Angela, what do you do with the info you collected from the superagers, and how do you apply that?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to say, so we're really proud. The superaging study is actually funded by a grant from the National Institutes of Aging in the U.S. and the McKnight Brain Injury, or the McKnight Brain Research Foundation. But we have a full Canadian team. So the current superaging study is the first Canadian cohort of superagers. So this has been going on in the U.S. and in other countries for a while. So we're super proud to kind of teach them what Canadian superagers do. There's a couple of unique components to our superagers. We have more married superagers. We have a lot more spousal couples coming into the study. We don't see that in other parts of the world. So that's an interesting piece that we're trying to pick up. We gather data on genetics, brain imaging. When people allow us the opportunity and donate their brains to us, we look at their brains post-death. A really important part of the Canadian contribution here is a partnership with my colleagues at the University of Waterloo and Sunnybrook Research Institute here in Toronto. So Andrew Lim here in Toronto, Rick Swartz here in Toronto, Dr. Bill McElroy at the University of Waterloo, Dr. Karen Van Uddingham there. So we're the Canadian team. And part of what we're doing is a similar approach to what Sarah's doing. We put wearable sensors on people that are like Band-Aids. They're quite small. They allow people to move around in their lives. And we're getting an idea not just about how the brain is changing, how the genetics may differ from typical agers, but we're actually looking at the everyday behavior, sleep patterns, movement patterns, heart rate patterns of superagers, and trying to find out what's really actually separating them physiologically from the rest of us that might be contributing to better brain outcomes. So that's one of the unique things that we're doing here in Canada. We hold these data and they go into this kind of larger repository. We build models of genetics that may help us understand, again, conditions like Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease. In fact, we're starting to identify some very specific genes that may actually be in superagers that protect them from some of the other brain diseases that we see. So we combine our superaging data with data that come out of observational studies that we've conducted here in Canada. Again, many of these funded by the Ontario Brain Institute, that let us take information about the brain, physiological functioning, brain imaging, and actually compare that to people with neurodegenerative brain disorder, so we can actually start to build these models of what aging looks like. The real goal, the real hope, is that this will actually unlock keys for slowing disease or preventing the onset of disease, for the many, many Canadians who are living with dementia, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease, damage post-stroke. So we put all these data into one large bin as a way of understanding that continuum. We're the only people to do that, by the way. So superaging studies exist, but we're the only group of people, thanks to Canadians who've been so generous to us, who actually have data on people with dementia and neurodegenerative disorders to go alongside the superaging data. So it really is a unique Canadian story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Sarah Robichaud, I think you kind of answered this question a bit already, but have your patients reported improvement of their symptoms of Parkinson's?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, again, we hear all the time, just got back from my doctor and, you know, my gait is better, or my flexibility or my strength, or, you know, my husband used to not be able to stand over the sink and brush his teeth, and now he's, you know, doing this and that. And, you know, like we hear this all the time, every day. My shoulders used to hurt. They don't hurt anymore, you know. And again, I think it is literally just that routine. It's that cumulative, a little bit every day, and always that messaging of don't push. If it hurts, don't do it. Like, we're not here to hurt. We're here to, you know, have fun. And so, yeah, we hear that people feel that their entire physicality improves in terms of strength, length, flexibility, range of motion, all of those great things. Happiness. Happiness, yes.
So, and a very important question, do you allow people who have other types of conditions into your class, or is it only?
Yeah, we sure do. So prior to the pandemic, we were inviting only people with Parkinson's disease and their care partners and family members. Now, once we opened up the classes to seniors living in long-term care homes in rural areas during the pandemic, because we could on Zoom, we could accommodate them, we have learned about how beneficial this research-backed program is for them as well. You know, Dancing with Parkinson's is an evidence-based program. Like, it is specifically designed for people with Parkinson's disease. But we are just elated and thrilled to know that seniors of all abilities and mobilities and disabilities are finding the same kind of benefit in our classes, so we welcome all.
Amazing, great, thank you. Oh, this is a question for all the panelists, and it's very interesting. Please comment on cardio versus strength training. Which is better, I imagine, for brain health?
You're the physio.
Sure. Sarah Lambert, why don't you start? Why don't you take this?
It really depends on the goal, right? So, like, if the patient wants to do this 2 kilometers, like, he should work on his cardio. But if the patient is just trying to get more strength and like being more up, so really depending on the objective and the outcomes, I think this is where we find like which training is the best.
Okay. Angela, do you have an answer to this?
So I as someone who works, I mean, again, our superagers blow everyone out of the water, including me. So taking them out of this equation, I think the most important thing when you have a clinical condition that happens to older adults is it's really whatever you can do in the moment, right? Just get moving. Exercise now is part of mainstream medical management for Parkinson's disease, for example. And in our disease groups, whether it's weight training or physical, kind of cardio activity, there's studies that show both are beneficial, and there's studies that show combining them are beneficial. What our Canadian standards say is about 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous activity, and 2 days a week of strength training at minimum. That's our benchmark minimum standard. So I think the answer to that, I'm going to take the middle ground and say both. But if you're struggling with one or the other, that's not a reason to say I can't move, right? Because even walking to a neighbor's house is movement. Getting out and gardening is movement. So it's about thinking about activity in different ways.
Sarah Robichaud, do you have any thoughts on this? Or?
I concur.
Okay, this one is a question for Sarah Lambert. Let's see. When you're working with kids living with cerebral palsy, how do you encourage movement? How do you encourage movement when working with kids with cerebral palsy?
With games. So when I was working with them, I'm not in that, I'm doing it now, but mostly like when we're doing demos. So we're always bringing like objects. So now we're trying to make a story and make a story around the fact that now they have their hands free, so they need to take an object and put it on the other place. So like if it's parrots, for example, they need to put the treasure in the other place. And now we're trying to make it as a game. So now it's more fun. So now the patient is more engaged in the action of making the movement. So as I said, it's now a fun activity instead of therapy.
Okay, great. And the other question for you is, do you work with adults with multiple sclerosis?
That could work. I mean, we're just beginning the sensor, like the technology for adults. So there's still something to learn, but definitely we're open to some type of collaboration.
Okay, great. Angela, can you comment on the implications of economoneurons?
Oh, the von Economo
Economoneurons, thank you. And the implications of social engagement in relation to the ongoing trend of working from home and or online education.
I can't. So the psychology and kind of impact of social isolation and loneliness falls outside of my expertise. And I'm assuming part of what the question might be is, do we find that there's kind of neural changes in things like von Economo neurons or pathways because of this strange, rather strange, unprecedented world that we have found ourselves in for the last little bit? And I don't know that anyone's looked at that. I mean, we certainly know the impact of COVID and the impact of going to more, kind of virtual means of interacting and communicating with one another has had a psychological impact on our society, and it's had a profound impact on older adults in particular. But whether or not that's having an impact on what we may see generations down the road in terms of von Economo neurons, I don't know. But von Economo neurons, we know, are kind of tuned, as I said, to this salience network that tells us what's valuable, what's important, what helps to reward us. From an evolutionary perspective, the thought was that, because we know von Economo neurons occur in almost all species of whales. And whales form pods, and whales communicate in very sensitive ways to maintain their community. So that's kind of what we think we know about von Economo neurons and their role in social community, social connection, is the fact that they do seem to play a role in that in other species like whales. But we're still really trying to understand this relationship. It's where we hope superagers will help us. And most of us, they're not a particularly plentiful neuron. But in our superagers, they're certainly there. So that's a stay tuned, and I'll get more information and be happy to come back and sit with you and answer that down the road.
Thank you. This one is for Sarah Robichaud. Can visualizing movements in one's mind help cognitive skills for those who are actually unable to move physically?
I don't know the science behind that because I'm not a scientist. I do believe we do use this as a practice, however, because we do have dancers who are in hospital beds or in rehab hospitals who feel very sick one day, and they still come to class. Somebody helps them Zoom into class. And what I try and get them to do is just that, is visualize themselves doing it. And they do report back that they do feel the benefit. Now, are they getting the benefit from visualizing the movement or the music or the community, or is it all the ingredients together? But anecdotally, we do see benefits there.
So Wency, if I might pick up on that.
Please,
so you're exactly right. One of the things that does happen in the human brain is when we know a movement, we actually simulate that movement, and that happens at kind of a neuronal level in the brain. So the same thing happens, for example, if you hear an action word like kick, the regions of your brain that are actually used to activate the muscles for kicking actually activate and go live. And so we've looked at this in a couple of studies where, for example, in people with Parkinson's disease who have impairments of the lower part of their body or the upper part of their body, we actually see them be more delayed in processing words around kick if they have lower body impairments, or pinch if they have upper body impairments, because it's this brain's difficulty in simulating movements. Those movements are whether you envision them or whether you actually hear the language that's involved in movements. And so in rehabilitation science, we use a lot of this visual imagery to get people. It's used in stroke, it's used in people who have had amputations, it's used in neurodegenerative diseases, to get people to do these mental simulations, not just thinking about the behavior, but actually activating the neurons involved in the behavior to increase signal activation down through the rest of the body. So yes, visualization has a neural piece that is used in rehabilitation science, and certainly is effective in what you're doing as well. And I'm sure from your kids, there's another component to that as well. But
yes, Sarah, you're nodding your head. Do you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, she's the best scientific here, but definitely, like, learning a movement is definitely by repeating the same movement. You're just like, you're getting better because your brain, there's the activation, and you're just like increasing this portion of your brain, like the neurons and the connection is increasing. So definitely by repeating the same movement, and for us, it's walking. By repeating the walking pattern in a better way than the usual walker, then you are in a better posture and a better position to be able to walk by yourself.
Do you kind of implement visualization with the clients who use your?
Depend on the age. Like
Okay.
at 3 years old, they are less open to the visualization.
Sure.
But yeah, at 12, they might be more open to. So we're trying to educate the patient, but like still the app is mostly based for patients with who are smaller. Yeah.
Okay, great. Angela, this question is about the work that you do in live space mobility. Can you explain what that is?
yeah, so it's interesting. I was doing a spot for the agenda on TVO this morning, and the same kind of dialogue came up with myself and two other researchers who do aging research. But this idea that we need to start thinking about function, thinking about existence with a broader view. So I talked a little bit ago about what my lens as a speech-language pathologist brings, and so it's time that we kind of stop thinking just about the biology or just about the social, but we keep thinking, we challenge ourselves to think about whether it's injury, recovery, just aging, existing in the world. What is the full life space that people exist in? So this kind of term life space mobility has been around for a while. An aging study at the University of Alabama, Birmingham actually created a life space mobility measure that some of us use in science. But we've been thinking about it more and more in terms of how does aging and the diseases that we encounter as we get older shrink our life space mobility? How do these conditions start to narrow the world in which people engage in and interact socially and physically? And how do our interventions, how do the tools and techniques that we use encourage people to expand that back out? Because we actually think this expanding is where the importance is in recovery and quality of life. So we and others are starting to think differently around how we study these conditions, what we think of as being important markers. Technologies like wearable sensors and low-burden wearable sensors let us envision and imagine and actually measure that life space mobility. We have a clinical trial for speech-language pathology program in people with a condition called primary progressive aphasia, so relatively rare dementia. It's with a colleague of mine at Northwestern University in Chicago. We're now starting to use sensors to measure changes in life space mobility as a standard outcome measure in speech-language therapy services, so that we actually figure out what people are doing when they're not in the clinic. So I think we're seeing a converging of science and expertise and interdisciplinary folks here to say it's not just each of our silos, but how the interventions that we're putting in place, device or behavior, dance, exercise, otherwise, are helping people to open back up their world. And that's going to become, I hope, I'm on a mission to make that our new endpoint.
I love that.
Cool. Sarah Robichaud, do you have a comment about this idea of opening
Yeah,
up?
I mean, the idea of you know, the aging world becoming very small, or the disabled world becoming very small. And, you know, at Dancing with Parkinson's, we believe that everybody, you know, is really entitled to the same access to art, to music, to community, you know, that we all are, that very able-bodied people are. And we find that by giving opportunities for, you know, artistic enrichment, for exploration with different musicians, or taking a virtual art gallery tour, or, you know, bringing professional dancers into the program, and poets, and all of their worlds begin to expand. And from there, they go and read a different book on a different kind of poetry. And from there, they join a poetry group. You know, like whatever we offer is the starting place for then our dancers to take part in all of the other things that are available to them, that maybe they didn't have the courage or the self-esteem or the energy, or, you know, didn't feel well enough to do so, but we find that this is happening. So our dancers' worlds are not just on this Zoom. This is just the beginning. It's not just in the class. That is just the beginning. And everything that comes and enriches them through the communication, through the relationships, through the experiences, allows them to go out and live a full life.
That's fantastic.
Great, thanks. I think we have just another couple of questions, possibly. Sarah, with the data from your gait trainer, are you able to predict a person's future walking progress?
That's the goal. So we began to build some AI models to engage the patient in their therapy, right? Because, like, if I put myself in her position, I'm thinking, like, what would motivate me? And, like, what I was trying to do is, like, by saying to a patient, oh, if you walk on a daily basis, you will be able to walk by yourself in 2 years. So, showing, like, they have their own goals for sure, but, like, trying to put some more science and more technology around the fact that this is achievable and this is not achievable. So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. So right now we're building the AI models. So that's going to be the goal, I would say, the next years.
Okay, yeah. Very good. Thank you. So to each of our panelists, where time is running out, I just have a few minutes left. So. You know, what I've noticed during this conversation is that all of you have come from service professions, like speech pathology, physical therapy, dance teaching. Given your brain health expertise, I guess what would you say is the takeaway that you want everyone to leave here with today?
I think definitely do not underestimate the value of fun. So we all know that we need to move, and we need to move often. So find something that is fun to do, number one. And number two, find your community. Your community will keep you going. So those would be my takeaways.
Fantastic. How about you, Angela?
You stole mine.
Oh, sorry.
I think community would have been my number one, but my number two, I think, you know, a lot of the research that we're doing is about reducing stigma in aging. And in fact, our super aging folks will tell us all the time, you have the best job in the world. Every day you get to change how people think about aging. And I think that's super important. For us to act and move, we need to lift that stigma at a societal level, a government level, a funding level. And so that would be my takeaway.
Great, thank you. And Sarah?
They also stole mine, but like I I want to ask you, because you're part of the community, right? So if you're here tonight, it's because you care about brain injury. So you are part of our community. And if you can help us, like help the aging population to have access to, like, spreading the word that this technology exists, and we're just trying to make it in the market so that patients can actually benefit from it. So you are part of it, and if you can help us achieving our mission, that will be super appreciated.
Great, thank you. On behalf of the Ontario Brain Institute, I want to thank each of our panelists for being here today and sharing their expertise.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience for engaging in this talk tonight. Thank you so much for all of your questions. We'll have some resources to share with you for more information around this topic. And we will post them on the screen shortly, and a complete list is also on the OBI website. So your
And
feedback.
our incredible moderator.
Oh,
Thank you,
yeah.
Wency.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, though, I just want to mention that the next talks is in the Brain Health the Brain Health Basics series is on sleep and relaxation this November, and also the Eat and Play talk in March 2024. So hope to see you all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.